Hello, and thank you for joining me. Today we're going to review how to properly crimp wire terminals. During my 9 years as a generator technician, I have seen a lot of expensive equipment damaged due to poorly crimped wire terminals. It seems as though some new employees are being thrown to the wolves. They're being supplied with the proper tools and the proper equipment, but not the proper skill needed to fasten terminals. And so let's review today how the job ought to be done. The first thing that ought to be considered when going to crimp wire terminals is which type of terminal will be best served for this particular operation. For instance, there are non-insulated stake-on type terminals. There are insulated stake-on type terminals. The non-insulated is less bulky and should be selected in instances where they don't have the potential to get wet or to be exposed to weather. Whereas the insulated, of course, is the exact opposite. You're going to want to use these if there is the potential to get wet or to become exposed to weather. This will prevent corrosion. Now, these two types that we just discussed can be crimped with any common crimper for that specified type of wire. Now, there's another type, a third type that we're going to discuss today, and this is a circular type crimped stake-on terminal, and it requires a special type of crimper, and we're going to also review that. So let's get started. The first thing we want to do is determine how far back does the wire need to be stripped. And so we'll take our general stripper slash crimpers, and a good rule of thumb to follow is to evaluate the amount of insulation that is on the terminal that we're going to be using and strip that amount back, because you could think of it like this: you're going to be replacing the insulation on the terminal, or rather the insulation on the wire with the insulation that is on the terminal, and so you could strip back the same amount from the wire that's on the terminal as we'll be replacing that. And so let's get started doing that. We're just simply going to put this in the stripper. It specifies the type of wire we're using, which is 16 gauge. Now, when placing the terminal onto the wire, keep in mind that these type terminals have a split down the front, which is on the opposite side of where the fork is. There's a split here. Now, we'll take note also that on these crimpers there's a groove and there's a spade. You never want your spade to go into the split of the terminal. You want to cradle it with the groove. So what we'll do here is we'll go ahead and place the terminal in its proper seating position to ensure the spade is on the opposite side of the split in the terminal. And then we'll go ahead and put the wire in just to where it's going to stick out, and then we'll pull it back just to where it's hidden and make our crimp. Make sure it's good and tight. And that's a properly crimped wire terminal. Now we want to, since the insulator is done just that way, we're going to go ahead and review the other type, the circular crimped type. Now, let's talk about these a little bit. You noticed how on the first type we crimped it on the insulation. These are exactly opposite. It's going to be crimped on the metallic part. And so we need to strip back enough wire to complete the entire amount of the terminal, because we're going to need to go all the way up with our bare wire. So let's do that. Get our wire prepared. We're going to go ahead and twist it and make sure we got a good tight braid. That way no strands of wire get left behind. That can lead to connections getting hot if you don't have all your strands of wire there. Now here's the specialized crimpers that we talked about. If you noticed, if you can kind of zoom in on this and see, as I squeeze down these crimpers, you can see 4 spades coming out there from different directions. Okay, that's to ensure that the circular type remains in a circular shape as we crimp it. Okay, so we'll go ahead and shove this on there. If you use a regular type of crimpers on this, what's going to happen is it's going to lose its circular shape and become flat on some edges, and it won't fit into the specialized base that you need to insert it in. And so we need to make sure we use the proper crimper for the proper terminals. Now on this one we're going to make several crimps. We want to crimp the entire thing so that it's all smashed down to the same shape. As you can see there, this is a properly crimped special circular type stake-on terminal, and that's the way those are done. Now if we follow these steps, we'll ensure that we have a long and successful career. And remember, you can always ask an employee next to you, one who has more experience. And everyone will always be happy to share their experience with you. Thank you for joining me.